So again, we're so thankful that you're here today. And I see a couple more people are coming in, but I think we're going to get started and honor everyone's time. So with that, let's get to it. So today our webinar focus is exploring water education resources. And we're so thankful for everyone here who has taken the time to join us. We have a wonderful lineup of presenters that are going to share many free resources that will help connect you and your students to water curricular activities and sustainability activities that are available in the Milwaukee area. Many of those are also virtual or have virtual components, so we can try to implement as many of these things as easily as possible as we start the new school year, as many of our schools and districts are starting out virtually. So I'd like to welcome our presenters that are going to be participating today. We have representatives from the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee, from Milwaukee Riverkeeper, from the University of Milwaukee School of Freshwater Sciences, from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, or MMSD, the Haggerty Museum of Art, which is part of Marquette University, and then a special welcome and thank you to the representatives from Upham Woods Outdoor Learning Center and the UW-Madison Division of Extension. They are providing resources and sharing with you today, but they also are our webinar sponsor, thanks to the Science Strikes Back grant that is providing this webinar free for all of us to participate and connect today. All right, so today's agenda, we're really going to focus most of our time on resource sharing. So each organization is going to have a segment where they're going to go through the programs and the resources they have available to you. And then we'll reserve any time at the end for questions and answers and discussion. And so again, if you have any questions that come up throughout, please go ahead, type them in that Q&A box, and we'll try our best to answer as many of those as possible at the end of the session. You also are going to be receiving an email follow-up from me that will include a link to the session slides as well as a digital resource handout. So as each organization presents, their final slide is going to have contact information and direct links to the resources that they're sharing. All of that has been compiled for you into a handout that you'll have access to following this session. So you don't have to worry about writing down websites or any of that good stuff. We'll be able to share that with you directly. And then lastly in the email, we are including a survey. We'd really appreciate your feedback and your suggestions on how this session went today so we can continue to grow our digital programming and support for all of you in the future. Before we jump into our resources today, I would like to do a real quick poll and just see who's participating on the call. So we're going to share a poll about audiences and what role best describes you. Okay, so on your screen you should see a few choices. And please go ahead and select which one of those roles best describes you, and then we'll see who's participating today. And then Justin, you've got to let me know when we're close because I can't see any results. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so it looks like we're almost equal, informal educator and elementary educators, and then a couple of higher ed educators sprinkled in. So welcome everyone. This really just helps inform kind of our discussion that we'll have at the end of the session and to just get to know each other a little better, especially because we can't see each other's faces. All right, so without further ado, let's get into resource sharing. So I am actually going to share some of the resources for the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee as well as Reflow. One of our main focuses is going to be on the Eco-Literacy Challenge, which is an awesome resource for all of you to find water-related activities that encourage sustainability practices and connection to nature. But thought it might be nice to give an overview of what the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee is and how you could potentially be a part of that. So Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee, also known as the GSCM, is really about providing resources and a network of support for anyone who's interested in supporting green and healthy schools. So we currently have over 800 members, which is wonderful, that represents educators, parents, students, nonprofit organizations, community members, government agencies, and funders, anyone who's really aligned in that Green and Healthy Schools initiative and wants to support the really positive changes that are happening in and around Milwaukee. To help provide those resources and connect our network, we have a newsletter that periodically shares resources and then shares inspiring stories of the good things that are happening in and around Milwaukee. We usually hold an annual Green Schools Conference, which unfortunately had to be canceled due to COVID, but we're so thankful that you've chosen to participate today in this webinar so we can still share many of the resources that would have been highlighted there at the conference if we were able to meet today in person. We have monthly meetings, the Eco-Literacy Challenge, which I briefly mentioned and will tell you so much more about shortly. And then the schoolyard redevelopment projects are a really important piece of this Green Schools puzzle, and the GSCM really helps to support that process as well. I'm going to spend a little time talking about that. So here you see our process diagram for the schoolyard redevelopment projects. It's currently showing that we're working with 21 different schools in the Milwaukee area. And you can see that it's a multi-year, multi-phase process. And the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee is really important because when a school decides they want to pursue becoming greener and healthier, they can apply for a conceptual planning grant. Those schools that apply for that then come and participate in a pitch session in front of a large committee of members that are part of the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee. They share their need, their enthusiasm, and why they really would benefit from having a greener, healthier schoolyard. And the members of that committee put the recommendations down for which 5 schools to pursue the grant. And based on that voting, we move those 5 schools into the conceptual planning phase, which lasts for a full calendar year. This is a super collaborative process. Students, educators, the school community, and the greater community of the neighborhood and other stakeholders are able to share their feedback and their perspective. And we go through an iterative process that really creates this conceptual plan design, as well as a conceptual plan document that takes into account how that new schoolyard would be utilized to support curricular connections and what maintenance considerations would be required if some of those suggested opportunities and features become a reality as part of the redevelopment plan. Following that year, based on the plan, we identify fundraising targets, and then the schools raise as much money as they possibly can to turn that conceptual plan into reality. Year 3, we know how much money is available. We can create the detailed designs and permitting with the help of engineers. And then in the 3rd summer, we actually enter into construction. So throughout this entire process, there's really wonderful connections that will help your students succeed and understand what's happening on their schoolyard with connections to water and careers and the environment. And so we really encourage those curricular connections from the very beginning and incorporate them into the conceptual planning process to make sure that teachers and students are really understanding holistically how this project is going to benefit them from an educational standpoint, from a social emotional standpoint, recreation and community engagement, and all other kinds of benefits that come with greening a schoolyard. Once that construction is complete, those schools move into maintenance and stewardship phase, which is really learning how to take care of their new redeveloped space and also utilizing it to the best of the ability to encourage outdoor learning. So very happy to report that our 2nd cohort of schools are actually in construction right now. This is an image of Clement Avenue School on Milwaukee South Side that shows a central island where you can see that there is a large hole that's dug here that will be replaced with a bioswale to help manage the stormwater that is falling on the ground. It will also have native plantings and walking paths and an outdoor classroom structure in this island, which I think will become a very sought after space. And there's recreational improvements. There's a soccer field going in here with improved drainage to make sure students and community can utilize that space for as many seasons as possible. And all of these improvements are really working to provide that engaging, enriching outdoor learning environment and all those other benefits that come along with being outside and connecting with nature. Now, this is an example of STARM's early childhood. This is a school that has gone through the redevelopment in our first cohort, and it serves 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So STARM's is located on Milwaukee's north side, approximately 27th and North Avenue. And the schoolyard before the redevelopment is all too often what we see when we look outside at playgrounds. And it's a lot of open asphalt, a lot of cracks, a lot of tar lines. And while they have a number of play features for those young students to play on, many of them were failing or were unsafe. And this environment didn't really lead to a lot of creative play. So through the redevelopment process, STARMS and all the other stakeholders created a plan, and we have actually helped to transition from this lot of asphalt to a much more engaging and creative play space for these young kids. So in replace of that broken and cracked asphalt, we have porous asphalt here and porous rubber surfacing and a bioswale. All three of those can help to manage the stormwater that falls on site and help decrease flooding that may be happening at the neighborhood, in the neighborhood homes or the businesses that are in the area. It also helps to keep our lake ultimately clean by helping to prevent sewer overflows. And this squishy rubber surface not only provides rainwater management, but it also helps, soften a fall if one of those littles were to trip. It helps to decrease injuries on the schoolyard. And it was a way that we could incorporate some geographic connections to Milwaukee. These young children are learning about Lake Michigan and Milwaukee's 3 rivers and how Milwaukee is literally built right on water, so we can understand the connections that our actions are having to the greater world and environment. These nodes are really great play features that kids can climb on and jump off of, but they also represent cities around Lake Michigan. So they're learning about geography and science and math and all these different curricular connections just by exploring their schoolyard. And by adding these boats and other features on the schoolyard, we're encouraging that imaginative play that is so important for young kids. So as these schools receive the redeveloped schoolyard, there's new considerations that they have to take. How are they going to maintain that space? Are they going to have the supplies they need to actively utilize that space that has been created? So we have been working with a number of partners in the Green Schools Consortium, as well as with the high school students from Bradley Tech High School and MPS to create an outdoor discovery cart. So this is a prototype of a mobile cart that we intend to give the schools as they create as they receive the redeveloped schoolyard that has materials to support gardening and like planting maintenance activities, scientific tools to support the education that's happening on site, and really create a really simple way for teachers to get outside and utilize the space that they have. So this has been informed by teachers and educators, and we're in a redesign of this current cart at the moment, and we're really excited and hopeful that these carts will be delivered to the cohort 1 and cohort 2 schools this school year so they can utilize their new created spaces. And then here is where I am most excited to share with you today. The Eco-Literacy Challenge is a website that the Green Schools Consortium has had for a little over a year. And it is an effort to bring together as many curricular activities as possible in the Milwaukee area that focus on water education and sustainability practices. So this website has kind of gotten a revamp in the last couple of days, and I'm excited to show you what that looks like. With the Eco-Literacy Challenge, it's really easy to participate. All you do is you sign up, and anyone who's interested in supporting green and healthy schools can do this. Teachers, students, parents, as long as you fill out the Google form, which is really quick and simple, and choose a school that you would like to align with, you will earn points for that school immediately by signing up, and then be welcome to find activities that you would like to complete that relate to water or sustainability. You can search the filter that I'm going to show you in the menu of activities that we have, or you can create your own and just get outside and experience nature and do some really creative education in going outside. We ask that you report your points with a short description and a photo. We then award you points, and then we can track who's participating in that level of engagement on a leaderboard. And what's important about that is it really shows the community connection and who's participating, and then also allows us to recognize some of those eco leaders with the intent of doing that at the Green Schools Conference each year. So again, here is that sign up form, quick and easy Google form. Encourage all of you to sign up for this after the session today. And then really take some time to search and look for activities. So this is the highlight for today. We have taken all of the wonderful activities that are listed on the Eco-Literacy Challenge, and we have added a filter for it. So there are a number of entries that are all gathered here, but it can be a little overwhelming by just scrolling through all of the activity options. So with this filter, if I'm interested in looking for conservation activities, I can click the tab and it will filter out all of the entries that have that same tagline. And if I want to get more specific, say I teach 3rd grade, I can click that box, and now it's going to filter and sort the ones that are most appropriate for what I'm looking for. So many of these activities are things that are being offered by the presenters that are part of this webinar. There are a lot of other activities or curriculums that you can download and you can connect with that are all part of this filter. So we really encourage you to check this out as well and look at all the wonderful opportunities that are here. Okay. And then with, once you complete the activity, we ask that you do some reporting. It's really quick and easy, another Google form, and what you'll see are some examples of what other schools have participated in. These are some visual representations of the activities that they've submitted, as well as the school that participated in it. And then if you hover over these on the website, you'll be able to see a short description. So this is just some inspiration and a reminder of the kinds of images that can be really powerful to show who's connecting and how they're interacting with eco-literacy and water education in their world. And then lastly, as those report points come in, we're able to track it. So we have a bar chart that's showing the schools that have participated so far, a couple new schools that are joining into the challenge, and we hope to see the list of participating schools and the level of engagement grow this school year, and are really excited to share with you all of the opportunities that we can provide that will support that as well. Okay. All right, so real quickly, I have a couple more slides to show you 2 virtual activities that could be a great asset to your classroom. This is the Milwaukee Community Map. It is curated by Reflow, and it's an interactive map that is powered by Google Earth, and you can share and explore all different kinds of water stories throughout Milwaukee. Water stories really focus on relationships and connections that are happening with different organizations in the area. Base maps are more geographical. You might want to explore what watershed you live in or where your water goes once it goes down the sewer. And then there's deeper dives that have a more thematic approach to let you explore all sorts of connections that Milwaukee has to water. We have great supports for the Milwaukee Community Map. You can download the full version of Google Earth and run through all of the layers that are there, or you can utilize web maps that are on Reflow's webpage. Those are snippets of the map, but they provide like really focused relationships for you to explore in the community and really help your students connect to different things that are happening in and around Milwaukee. The web maps are also a really great asset if you're running on a Chromebook. Those are accessible on a Chromebook, whereas the full Google Earth doesn't work in the same manner. There's Teacher's Guide to support you with suggested activities, and there is also the Milwaukee Waterscape game. This is a really great virtual activity that we think could be a benefit for students as they move back into classroom, whether it's virtual or online. It's a role-playing game where 5 players assume a role either as mayor, capitalist, laborer, the water folk, or journalist, and they work through scenarios and make decisions based on what their perspectives would be in that role. It's based in Milwaukee, but in the 1830s to 1920s. And as students persuade each other and they weigh the pros and cons of the scenarios that are being presented, they make decisions together and they see a map be built of what Milwaukee would look like based on those scenarios. And it considers, health of the water, health of the economy, and all the interconnections that are there for a city. And to support this as a potential virtual learning opportunity, there is a game guide and a game demo included for educators to see if this is something they can implement into their classroom. So I know that was a lot. I appreciate you guys sticking with this, but this is all of the contact information that you could need if you needed any help or assistance. I'd be happy to connect with you. And then all the resources that I have mentioned are listed here, and these will all be live links in that digital handout that come your way following this session. So thank you so much for learning a little bit about the GSCM and reflow. I am going to transition over to our next group of presenters. From Upham Woods and the UW-Madison Division of Extension, I'm very excited to introduce our webinar sponsors. With us today is Dr. Justin Huffam. He is Director of Upham Woods Outdoor Learning Center, as well as Associate Professor and Science Specialist for Environmental Education with the UW Division of Extension. Joining him is Isabel Hurdy. She is Program Director, and Ariel Christian, who is the Program Coordinator from Upham Woods. So we're really excited to have you and can't wait to hear what you have to share.
Thanks, Lisa, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Justin Huffam, and I'm excited to be on this project, and truly excited we're able to have something like this with over 100 people that registered and showed an interest. We're all learning how to adapt to the virtual world and virtual programming, and this project's really pushed us to imagine and reimagine that as we go. Our normal course of business is on this map here at Upham Woods, and we're a outdoor learning center in the central part of the state. We've been doing that for around 80 years, and we've been founded with some notions of, like it says in the middle, human companionship and fellowship with nature, which I just love. It's kind of how they said it in the 40s and 50s. And today we would describe that as, we're accomplishing human companionship from a distance virtually, and fellowship with nature through virtual programming. And for us, that's taken the shape of STEM education, and in particular, moving from citizen science towards community-based science. And that's the real intention of our projects and what we stand up and do with folks, whether it's in person or virtual. Those community-based projects are intended, and really particularly with our this Milwaukee project, to look at local water issues that we can collect information on and become a more informed community and citizenry around prevention and solutions to those water issues and water concerns.
All right, folks. Hi, Isabel again. So at Upham Woods, we have been really fortunate to pivot and work with our funders like the Environmental Protection Agency to make virtual programs available to groups that otherwise would have been able to visit us this past spring and summer. And this includes this list here. So bringing it back to Ranger Mac, this program is named after our first superintendent, Wakelin McNeil, who was also a radio personality host named Ranger Mac. His radio show guided youth through Wisconsin forests and dove into inquiry-based exploration. The schools that participated would tune in and even created science corners for his show. So remembering our history and that Upham Woods has successfully delivered distance learning before was a big comfort coming into this. So in his honor and In true form with our pedagogy, we have maintained that inquiry-based nature and youth-led discovery for our programming. And bringing it back to Ranger Mac is scaffolded and can be modified to different lengths, but I'll let Ariel talk about that more next. The 10K by 2020 Conservation Challenge is our pledge to put in 10,000 hours of conservation service into the Wisconsin landscape. And our goal with that program is to provide information and safety tips to folks and empower them to care for their local environment. And then last on here, we have the Wisconsin Coastal Quests, which are part of the Wisconsin Coastal Guide sponsored by the Wisconsin Sea Grant. And these quests are virtual field trips that use ArcGIS story maps to explore coastal communities and their issues.
Hi, everyone. So all of the remote and virtual programs that Isabel had just mentioned are put into 3 scaffolded phases focused on inquiry. So getting kiddos, any of our participants outside, interested in nature and exploring possibly in different ways than they have before. So with different inquiry activities. And then the second step is a scientific practice or activity. It could be tailored, it could be created just for you and your curriculum. And the third part of that is storytelling. One of the main things that we do at Upham on site and virtually is scientific storytelling and putting that youth voice into all of our activities. So these can be scaffolded, 3 steps, as well as tailor to your curriculum, and we can work with you to do those things as well.
And sorry, I'm excited about this video of this student here. She is a recent high school graduate from Ronald Reagan High School, and she filmed herself talking about doing field science as part of this curricular model so that students get to see another student be excited about doing a field science project before they try and embark on their own in their own neighborhood. So is her name.
So this is just one example of a group that we've worked with this summer, Madison School and Community Recreation. They are a summer camp, and since they couldn't come to Upham Woods and visit us on site, we did a virtual program with them. We also did a couple other virtual programs with another 4-H summer camp, as well as a middle school in Madison as well. And we had students watch some videos that our naturalists created and complete some worksheets that went along with this virtual animal signs lesson. And we even explored Isabel's backyard, and we all searched for signs of animals in her backyard. And so students annotated through Zoom their observations of Isabel's backyard, and they explored their own backyards and shared with us what they found in theirs. So again, creating that inquiry outside in nature, focused also on scientific practices and activities outdoors. And then again, that storytelling aspect. A lot of the students here as well submitted their stories to us. And we wrote back some stories to them about what we're doing over at Upham Woods.
Great. So the 10K Conservation Challenge, this is for all ages and is scalable for its complexity. It includes synchronous and asynchronous components. And these are structured generally around a singular project, like a trash pickup, invasive species pull, or water quality monitoring. The variety of these conservation projects allows for diverse engagement. Obviously, picking up trash is pretty easy. Pulling invasive species, it requires a little bit more skill. And then identifying macroinvertebrates to assess water quality is like another step up. So we provide resources like the biotic index and the dichotomous key and create as simplified materials list as possible so that it is widely accessible. You know, for that macroinvertebrate study, you really bare bones need an ice cube tray and a spoon, most things that people have in their house. So we also have instructional handouts and videos, and we're able to set up a synchronous Zoom session to review the project before or after completion. And we would teach safety, the ecological significance and importance of each project, or if it's after the project has been completed, we would review the data or the outcomes. We have scheduled synchronous Zoom sessions to discuss invasive species this week. In fact, we have one that's going to start at 3:30 and another one tomorrow, same time, same topic. And then next week, we'll be talking about biodiversity surveys and assessing biodiversity using the iNaturalist app. And again, on August 18th, we'll be doing another biodiversity survey. And we're asking folks to log their hours here through a survey. And if they reach 10 hours, we will mail them an Upham Woods Camp t-shirt. And we're pretty excited. We've already given away a few since launching this virtually a few weeks ago. And the conservation projects do not have to be limited to the ones that we have handouts and videos for. Ariel and I spoke with a kiddo yesterday who has been raising monarch butterflies every summer and releasing them. He also plants milkweed and native plants, and all of those projects would count as well. Yeah, we've been coordinating with teachers who want to plant milkweed and meet with us and talk about how that, is ecologically significant, and that absolutely fits in this model. So all of these projects also get logged onto a story map, so you can see statewide the different projects that people have been working on this summer. Great, and then the Wisconsin Coastal Quests. This is also for all ages. This is an asynchronous virtual field trip. The reading level is more geared towards middle schoolers, I would say, and we currently have 4 of these developed. Coastal Resilience in Port Washington, Nature-Based Shore Protection Design for the Kenosha Dunes, Healthy and Resilient Beaches in Racine, and Fishing Heritage of 2 Rivers. Now, each quest highlights the natural resources and cultural aspects of the area, and we have a tutorial video to walk folks through how to do it as well. But participants will access the story map through the Wisconsin Sea Grant website and virtually visit several spots. You can see how they're a little red on that map. And a little description pops up with thought-provoking content and questions and links for more information, like linking out to a rare species bird song. And each spot ends with a comprehension question that will unlock a clue to eventually spell out a word, which is a species of significance to the area, like monomen or wild rice, right? And once completed, they get to download a certificate of completion. And we are working on creating more of these with the goal of having one for each county, each coastal county, accompanied with a printable inquiry guide to take along with you in case you ever visit these places in person too. Oop, Justin.
Looking for my mute button, which was hiding. Thanks a lot, Ariel and Isabel, for going over these different opportunities. And as I mentioned, we're always innovating and trying to figure out the next way that we can connect what's happening outside and in our environment to classrooms and to young people all around Milwaukee, all around the world, really. Again, we have storytelling is a big theme for what we're doing, scientific storytelling, direct action, as you can see with the Conservation Challenge, and then of course this virtual programming that we hope loops right back to storytelling. We, in our future work, we hope that it's our students that are creating those quests, not just going on them. So hopefully that's a compelling layout of how these ideas are connected and circular. We want them to keep refeeding and refining. So thanks everyone for dialing in, and I think I passed the mic now. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you all for sharing these different kinds of opportunities, and I appreciate breaking it out into the different levels of engagement, from an action component and storytelling. It just helps to kind of frame the opportunities that you have to offer. So thank you so much for sharing. And we are going to transition to our next organization with Milwaukee Riverkeeper. I'd like to introduce to you their education coordinator, Julius Gaio. He is going to be sharing some of the virtual opportunities and programming that they have available at Milwaukee Riverkeeper.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, and thank you everyone for attending. It's great to be able to share some of these resources and learn about all the other great ones that are available to learn about the amazing water resources we have. So again, I'm Julius. I am the education coordinator with Milwaukee Riverkeeper. And yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the virtual lessons and classroom programs that we have. So, yeah, Milwaukee Riverkeeper's mission is to protect, improve, and advocate for water quality and riparian habitats in the Milwaukee River Basin. And a few years ago, we got feedback from teachers that they wanted more resources on how to talk about the rivers that were sometimes literally in the backyards of schools. So we developed this program to bring activities to all the students or to be available to any student in Milwaukee so that they could learn the importance of our rivers and how we can protect them. So a huge benefit of our program is that they are free to any school. So that's awesome. And then they are also, we try to be super adaptable to whatever your school circumstance is. So no matter what your grade circumstance, and now with COVID, you know, like whether or not you're in virtual, hybrid, or in-person lessons, we just want to bring river education to your classroom. So we are definitely flexible with whatever your classroom's needs are to make that happen. Yeah, so I'm going to go over a few of the lessons that we have. We have a diverse set of lessons that you can choose from or choose multiple of them. And so I'm going to explain a little bit about what we have done, what we do, to hopefully inspire you to see how you can use these programming in your classroom specifically. So some of the first lessons, all of our lessons, we focus on grades 4 through 12. These first two lessons are definitely more of the younger grades, but they focus on what the geography of the water is, the water cycle, and just gives kind of an intro to how water and rivers function in our Milwaukee River Basin. So we've got an introduction to water, which focuses on like the map of Milwaukee River Basin and how water flows through our area. And then we've also got the Watersheds 101 lesson, which has lots of hands-on water activities with a lot of activities that you can do using really like common household items. So if your class is kind of going to be working from or learning from home this next fall, then we definitely want to have, we have a lot of options for activities that they can do using the household items that they have available to them. And yeah, so that they can learn about how the rivers and watersheds work. These two classic lessons that we have are focused on the macroinvertebrates and what the bug's presence means for the health of our river. And this goes into a lot of the data that our volunteers at Milwaukee Riverkeeper collect. So we have a great number of volunteers who do this macroinvertebrate search and also do test water samples for the different water quality parameters that we have in our rivers. And with all that data, it's really important that our students also understand that and understand what the different qualities of health for our rivers are across Milwaukee. So we've been focusing a lot this summer on making these lessons still be hands-on and engaging, but also available to your classroom. So if your classroom is working from school or in a hybrid setting, we want to be able to like drop off equipment that we use for our lessons and see if you can use that for your classroom to teach about the water quality and have students actually test water samples and look at macros. Similar to how Up in Woods was talking about how all you need is really like a spoon and some ice cube trays and you can easily learn about all the macros that are there. And so we've always been focused on bringing rivers to the schools, and this is definitely one of those great lessons that does that. Our newest lessons are focused on the pollution that is in our water, but also focus a lot on the solutions to that. So we brought lessons on emerging contaminants, which are the pollutions that we are just recently learned about or that our scientists are just now focusing on. And both of these lessons are pretty new. And so they've been built from the ground up to be available virtually and look at a lot of the data that we've collected, as well as yeah, what we've learned about recently, and all of that through a virtual setting. So emerging contaminants can include medicine or like chemicals that come from plastic. And that kind of ties into our plastic pollution lesson, which it talks a lot about the plastic pollution we find in our rivers and how our actions lead to this to happen and what solutions we can take to solve this problem. So at Milwaukee Riverkeeper, we do a lot of trash audits or trash cleanups at our rivers. And so we have a lot of data on what this plastic pollution looks like and where it comes from. And we want our students to understand how that has occurred and what they can do about it in their day-to-day actions at school or at their home. So this is a lot of ties in a lot to the other work that Milwaukee Riverkeeper does, and is definitely aimed at higher grade levels who want to focus a lot on what scientists do day to day and how they can use those scientific principles to inform what they do, how they can find solutions to the problems of pollution. And the last resource I wanted to talk to you about is our recent Jump In with Julius lessons that we've been making. And you could think of these as mini versions of all of the lessons that we provide. So we have, they're all about 5 minutes and focus on different water topics around our rivers. And they all feature a really easy to follow activity that uses common household items. So a few of these include building your own bioplastic, cooking your own bioplastic in your kitchen and exploring alternatives to the plastic that has been polluting our rivers. For example, we also have done floodplains and learning how you can make a floodplain in your backyard and understand how floodplains spread out and what solutions we can make to make sure that doesn't happen. Or even erosion and river shapes and mini rain barrels, that we are all different examples of these lessons from our Jump In with Julius session. Yeah, so these links are, if you want to learn more about all the lessons that we provide, please feel free to email me at julius@milwaukeeriverkeeper.org. I'd love to discuss with you how we can have our lessons fit into your school programming or your school curriculum, and just finding out ways that we can work through making that happen. And then this other link is to our Jump In with Julius video lessons, which are on our website, but are also on our social media and also on YouTube. And it would make me so happy if you spread that to anyone who is interested in learning more about our rivers or is trying to find some activities to do while in quarantine, while also learning about amazing aspects of our rivers. So you please take advantage of both of these resources, and I look forward to hearing from you. And I'll pass it back to Lisa.
Thank you so much, Julius. If you have not seen Jump In with Julius, I highly recommend. Super engaging, really accessible lessons for a variety of ages that are a really fun way to teach about water and the connections that we're having. And I'm really excited to hear how your new programming goes, Julius. Those are really great connections for real world science with emerging pollutants and the plastics education, and connections to careers that students can really pursue. So thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely, thank you.
I'm gonna pass it over to our next organization, the Hagerty Museum of Art. And joining us today are Christine and Tanya, who have wonderful things to share about how STEAM connections with water can help to encourage your students' learning in and outside of the classroom.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to start by just saying a big thank you to both Lisa and Justin and their team at Reflow for including the Hagerty as an art museum. Living that STEAM life is very important. So we always appreciate being included in these great conversations with awesome partners. I am very lucky to hold the role of manager of community engagement at the Hagerty, and I oversee all of the museum's community partnerships, as well as community events, and also all of our K-12 programming, which often people are surprised to hear that we have as part of Marquette and the academic community there. We're going to be discussing our Water Across the Curriculum program, which is really a branch or a stream, water pun for you guys, of our Art Across Curriculum umbrella program. And that includes a program called Picasso Across the Curriculum and the Water Across. I'm actually going to be turning things over to our brand new Art Across Curriculum educator, Tanya, who's been with us to the day, just a month. So she's been diving in, another water pun for you. But she has learned a ton and is the best person, I think, to speak to all of the teachers in the room, as she would normally be the person going into the classroom. This year, we'll be doing lots of virtual programming options, which she'll talk a little bit more about. So Tanya Espinoza Bonilla, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you, Christine. Hi, everybody. Like Christine said, I'm going to be talking about some STEAM connections that we have with our Water Across the Curriculum program. Okay, so our Water Across the Curriculum, or WAC, as we like to call it for short, is basically a 4-part program, and it all starts with this large document that's called our Educator Resource Guide. And basically what that is a document that contains all of the materials for teachers to know what the curriculum includes and how they can prepare and enhance the experience on their end for students. After we get a chance, or the teacher gets a chance to look at that document, we then reach out to teachers and start planning classroom visits. Once we are in the classroom, we provide lessons that are based on the WAC curriculum and include art activities in each lesson. After our visits, the students then get a chance to come to us at the museum, and that is scheduled by the teacher at their own convenience. And I also want to mention that this program, all the resources of the content that this curriculum includes, it's all available in Spanish and in English. We have both, and it is an entirely free program for K through 12 teachers. So I alluded to our Educator Resource Guide, and what this guide has is basically all of the content of the 4 current chapters that we have that are available to teachers. So I want to just quickly go over those 4 chapters and what their theme is. So for chapter 1, it is about what is water, and this chapter is offered to pre-K all the way to 5th grade students. And I just want to quickly mention an organization, or some organizations, that helped us create the content of this chapter. So thank you to Liz Sutton and the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, the School of Freshwater Sciences. They helped us with What is Water. For chapter number 2, we have the water cycle, again offered to pre-K through 5th grade. And helping us with this content was actually Reflow Sustainable Water Solutions, so shout out to Reflow. Chapter number 3 is Water and Pollution, and this one is pre-K all the way to 12th grade for high schoolers. Kate Morgan and Christina Taddy from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District helped us with the content. And last but not least, we have Water Properties, and this one is for secondary school, so middle school, high school, 6th grade to 12th, and Marquette University, the Water Quality Center, and Kiana Young from Wake Forest University helped us with the content of this one. And I want to quickly mention, so I mentioned some organizations, but there were a lot of other partners that helped us review the content of this resource guide, and they're all in that document. So if you want to take a look at it later, go ahead. But I am going to just mention a few people. So Sandy Brull for all the water-related book recommendations that are in the resource, Sweetwater Freshwater Facilitators, Erin Selesky from Harbor District, Milwaukee, Kay Don-Lovey with the Freshwater Toolkit, and the staff at the Trowbridge School of Great Lakes Studies. So thank you all. So I mentioned the 4 current chapters that we have, but just looking ahead, I want to mention that we are in the works for 4 more chapters. And our hope is to be creating these 4 chapters within this year and be able to actually provide those chapters to teachers just as we do the first 4. So what would be chapter 5 is called Water and the Weather. And this one again is elementary school pre-K to 5th grade. Helping us with the content of that is UWM Atmospheric Science and Mathematics. For chapter 6, we have the Great Lakes Watershed, and that one again is pre-K all the way to 12th grade. Helping us with that were actually Erin Selesky from Harbor District, Milwaukee, Discovery World, and the Urban Ecology Center. Chapter 7 is History of the Great Lakes. So this one is, again, middle school and high school. Helping us with that is Milwaukee County Historical Society and the Wisconsin Marine Historical Society. And lastly, we hope to have also a chapter on water and food available for 6th graders all the way to 12th graders. And helping us with that is Alice's Garden and Cargill Food Scientists. So I've thrown a lot of information at you about what the Educator Resource Guide has, but you're probably wondering, okay, but what does it actually contain? How is it actually used? So what it has within itself, it has scientific content that explains the water theme for each of those chapters that I mentioned. It also has artworks that are in the Haggerty collections that connect to that theme, okay, for each chapter. And these link to the lesson plans and activities that are provided in those lessons to help students experience and make personal connections with the content. With that being said, it also, the resource guide also includes art and artist context information that goes along with those artworks. And it also has these dive deeper activities that totally is intended as a pun. We love water puns. And these include recommended books, local resources, our Ask an Expert activities, and family learning activities in each chapter. So how is this resource used, right? I talked a little bit about the content. Especially, I want to talk about how do teachers use this? So the first thing is it helps to prepare their classroom. So with the resources that are related to water theme, the water theme of the chapter that they chose, it helps to just like read it over and kind of have that first exposure to that information that they're about to receive. Right, it helps the students receive that information. In terms of water, it provides water concepts and vocabulary that we are going to be introducing to them. In terms of art, it shows students the works that are in the Haggerty collection that connect to the water theme to create deeper understanding. It has links, so it has recommended lesson plans, activities, books all from water partners. And it has those family activities that I alluded to, and these are for continued learning outside of our classroom visits. So I went a little too far here and I'm going further back. Oh
I'll
no,
help you out.
thank you. There you go. All right, so I talked about how the resource guide works, but how does the whole program work, right? What's the step-by-step? So once teachers have taken a look at that educator resource guide and chosen that chapter that they want to focus on, we then provide a teacher overview packet, which is basically a document that provides the teacher with a summary of what they can expect for our classroom visits with their class. And this includes the water theme, the relevant vocabulary that students will receive, the artworks that are going to be discussed, the art activity that they will do, they'll receive a summary of it and sometimes pictures if we've done that activity already. And lastly, they'll have the room setup that we will require, that we will want to be able to do that activity and the materials that students will use. Then we also have adaptable and specialized lessons. So by that, I mean each lesson is catered to the specific school population and grade level that we are going to be teaching. With that being said, we have partnered with art and science teachers for WAC. So that's our focus. Classroom visits are 1 to 3 times. We offer it up to the teacher, right? It can be 1, 2, or 3. It's really up to them and their availability. The more lessons they do, the deeper the connections there are, but it depends on the teacher's schedule. We have art making activities related to the chapter themes. So each lesson has an art making component, and this encompasses the water theme with some aspect of the artworks that are presented to students. We also have those family activities for deeper learning. And this is resources that are provided to the students via the teacher from us to provide them with opportunities to continue their learning at home after we've come in. And lastly, they get to, like I mentioned before, come to the museum for a tour. And this is scheduled by the teacher at their own convenience through our website. Okay, this next slide I purposefully called Riding the Waves of Uncertainty because, as many of you know, this year is really uncertain in many ways, especially in education. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what we're thinking of in terms of how are we going to adapt this curriculum to this year and possibly later. So we are currently working on making podcasts, and we've partnered with the Marquette University theater students for vocal talent for that. We're also thinking about, okay, how do we adapt the WAC program to be usable in online learning? So we're looking for new ways to present the curriculum with or to teachers and students. And we're also creating interactive online tours for students, and this includes access to behind the scenes art storage and more. I also wanted to give you guys a little sneak peek of what we will be having later on. So we are currently working on another curriculum program that is called FOVA. It stands for Focus on the Visual Arts. And it's meant to provide, just like WAC, interactive and adaptable lessons that will expose students to artists, different art media, and different art movements through the lens of art history and through art making. It also has art making as part of each lesson. And we hope to be introducing this in the spring, if not in the fall of 2020. And I know I threw a lot at you just now, but just a final goodbye. I wanted to go over our 4 links for you that we feel are important for you all to have and really just useful information. So we have that educator resource guide that I talked so much about. That is our first link, and that has everything from the curriculum, and it is currently offered to K through 12 teachers, and it has contact information in there. We also have our monthly newsletter that just highlights just the best things that are happening in the month, and it just has information for teachers on educational programs. We also have our Hagerty Museum of Art site, and that has everything from education to all arts activities that we are up to or events. And lastly, we have our virtual visit sites. So we know that it is uncertain, unsafe sometimes to be outside, so we wanted to provide a safe way for you to come and visit the Hagerty at any time. Feel free to contact me through email or phone number. My name is Tanya again. Thank you so much for your time.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really appreciate you sharing how you're adapting to our new scenario and giving us something hopeful to look forward to and how we can engage our students. And I'm going to throw in a couple water puns here too. I encourage you all to dip a toe in the water with that Water Across curriculum, or take a really deep dive, because there are beautiful works of art related to water that will really enrich your science teaching instruction, no matter what age your students are. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Lisa.
And then moving on to our next presenter, we have the UW-Milwaukee School of Freshwater Sciences that is going to be sharing some of their freshwater ecology activities. Liz Sutton is our presenter. She is Outreach Program Manager at the School of Freshwater Sciences. And if I can give you access to the screen, I might have to click for you, Liz.
I will try requesting again.
Oh, can you try now? Does it work? You have it, Liz. So again, this is Liz Sutton, and let's learn all about School of Fresh Water.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Lisa, for inviting me to join. It's always great to get a chance to work with all of the wonderful presenters on the panel today, and getting a chance to share the stuff that we have at the School of Freshwater Sciences. If you're unfamiliar with us, we are part of UW-Milwaukee, and we are the first graduate school in the country dedicated to freshwater sciences. And through that, we are doing a lot of research and have kind of that background focus. And our K-12 programs like to try and share that research, as well as get students interested and engaged in their local waterways and water resources. So the first two are kind of the larger bulk of some of the work that we do. The first being the Lake Sturgeon Bowl, which is for 9th through 12th grade students. It is an academic quiz bowl. So if you're familiar with something like Science Bowl or Envirothon, it's similar to that. And this is really focused on everything to do with water. So it's an ocean related bowl, but it includes stuff on the Great Lakes, anything marine science related, current issues with water, technology, kind of anything is on the board for that. And it's a team of 4 to 5 students who will come, and in our normal years, we would plan that they would come and meet with us to compete against each other like you see in the picture there. This year we may end up going virtual, depending. It is something that happens in the spring, so we're still waiting to make our decisions on that. But we do provide training and different activities so that we can help people get engaged and move forward with that. Our second competition is the ROV competition. So ROV stands for Remotely Operated Vehicle. And in this one, so the other one I really like because, the Lake Sturgeon Bowl, I should say, I really like because it provides a activity and opportunity for students who are really interested in science. You know, a lot of times they have music, they have sports, they have those different things that they can meet new people with. This is a science related something they can meet other interested students with. So I think it's always a great way to bring different types of students together. And the ROV competition does that as well. So teams, and this is 5th through 12th grade, they don't all compete against each other at those grades. We kind of separate them into 2 groups. But they are working to design and build an underwater vehicle or an underwater robot. It's tethered, so it's got a cable going up to the surface. And they are building a business, essentially, that builds these ROVs. So they have to be able to demonstrate it. They have to be able to do some marketing with it. So do a poster that shows us how great it is. They write a technical report and they do a presentation kind of selling it to a team of engineers. So it's a really great way to get students who are interested in a lot of things together, and can be done through a variety of ways. One of my favorite things about it is, and I'm sorry, I'm seeing with the chat, someone mentioned Spare Parts with George Lopez. Yes, Spare Parts is based on the international competition students with the MATE organization. So it's similar to that. But I really like, I had students who were going into, you know, more like social science is what they thought they wanted to be when they got older. They wanted to do social work. They had worked on, and the young lady came up to me and said, well, I just worked on fundraising for things. And she thought she didn't really contribute to the group. And I went, well, if you didn't work on fundraising to get all of that equipment and stuff, your team wouldn't have been able to be a successful competitor, right? So it isn't something, it's something that can be challenging, but we do provide some assistance. And for new teams, we do provide a really basic kit for an ROV, so that can help you get started. So I would encourage you to check that out if you're interested. We do professional development for teachers as well. This one, and I see someone on the call who is probably, or on the webinar, who is probably in that picture. We have groups where we are working to teach teachers about the watershed and how to share the outdoors in the watershed with their students. And that really then leads to actively bringing their students on a field trip, which I'll talk about in a moment, But we want to get them into Lake Michigan. Many of you are probably familiar that a lot of our students in the Milwaukee area have never been to the shore of Lake Michigan. About 40% have never really seen Lake Michigan. So this is an effort to help train teachers to do that. And then they themselves can also bring their students. It's a really great way to expand your information and knowledge as well. And it's one of the ways that we can connect you to some of our researchers as well. The other way that we try to connect with you a bit more is with the UWM Water Ambassadors. So as I mentioned, we're training our graduate students to be working out in the world based on the science they're doing. Some of our students go on to be researchers themselves. Some might work in governmental organizations like MMSD or River Keepers. So we want to make sure our graduate students know how to talk to everyone about their science. And that's really what started the UWM Water Ambassadors. This is a chance for our students to come out and talk to your students, and for your students to see someone who looks a little closer to them and gets to really do these hands-on activities with some graduate students. Now, this one in particular, we are working on in that these students can do some virtual visits. It is also a way that we can connect with our graduate students if we are doing something on the shore of Lake Michigan, to be able to connect virtually with your students. So there would be a lot of chance to connect with our graduate students through the Water Ambassadors. We do offer facility tours. Right now, of course, it is closed down as UWM is still kind of closed to a lot of outdoor community members. But we do offer tours for high school students. This is a walking tour. We do limit it to high schoolers because it's heavy focus on science, and it's a lot of walking. So for our middle school students and younger, I would recommend doing something like having the UWM Water Ambassadors visit, or doing something where we may meet you on the shore of Lake Michigan or nearby waterway to connect with you. But one of the links to have in our resources is that we do have a really brief virtual tour, which you can peek at some of the work that's going on and get a little feel for the stuff that we do. We have a great facility that's was actually built in the 60s, and we've just continued to add on a whole variety of things. So it's a good trip when you can. And these are the outdoor experiences I was talking about. So it's really for 5th through 12th grade students. I was speaking with Lisa a little bit, you know, there may be potential for this to happen in the fall, even as you're doing some hybrid. It's probably more based on what you as a school are allowed to do, is probably the more difficult stepping stone than us. But this is a really great way. We can also, I can be on the shore and do these activities with your students while they are virtually and at home. So it could be a really great way to do a field trip where you're taking these students to a new location without actually being able to go on that field trip. But we set up, when we can do it completely in person, we set up 5 different stations where your students get a chance to look at all of the different aspects of being kind of a researcher out in the field. You're gathering data, you're looking at water quality, getting weather updates. We do some observation, so a lot of journaling and that type of thing. And as you can see in one of the pictures down in the bottom, we do try to get them into Lake Michigan as well, if that's a possibility. And that gets them, you know, we go to our knees, but it's a really great experience for them. Many of them, that can be the highlight of their chance to come to the lake. So in addition to what the UW ambassadors, where we can do some presentations and stuff like that to your students, or I can as well, we're also looking to do Ask a UWM Water Ambassador, where you can just connect with them and they can talk to you about some of their experiences, the research that they're doing, and really it's an opportunity for your students to ask them the types of questions about what is it like to go out on a research vessel or go snorkeling in a river, so that you can explore different things. And as I mentioned, we have virtual trips to the shore of Lake Michigan as well. When we do our interactive presentations, we're looking to have some activities where, I'm in the process of developing activities where you can use your things around your house to do different things. So like building a plankton and floating it in your water, how can we do that with some things around your house? So we'll be working on those activities as well. A lot of opportunities now to connect with our researchers, which in many times they have a different schedule. So we're looking to do more and more of that. As additional resources, I wanted to point out a couple. The first is nautiluslive.org. They are still looking to go out on the ship, but essentially this is following along with the EV Nautilus, which is an exploration vessel out in the Pacific Ocean. Your students can listen live into the control room where all of the researchers and ROV pilots and video people are all working. You get to hear behind the scenes exactly the things that they're talking about. You can also write in questions, asking them what they're seeing, trying to find more information from them. There's an opportunity to do live ship to shore interactions with your students as well. So it's a great resource for you to connect with you and your students. If you're ever really interested and want to get involved, you can also go as a science communications fellow, where you yourself are the one who are out on the research vessel or the exploration vessel and are doing those ship to shore interactions with students and those types of things. The DPI has done this year a focus on water, part of Governor Evers' water focus for this year. And so they have a website that is all focused on a bunch of different science related topics and a lot of good resources, including some maps in the area where you can find out more about all of the different environmental activities that are going on, or activities related to water. And then the last one, the CGLL, is the Center for Great Lakes Literacy. And right now they're doing some wonderful professional development for teachers, which are webinars that they are and workshops that they are doing. But in general, they have a huge wealth of resources, lesson plans, interactive things online, a great wealth of things. So I would recommend you checking that out as well. So for my list, I kind of tried to narrow it down a little bit. All of our K-12 school outreach is that first link. So that will take you to information about the Lake Sturgeon Bowl, the ROV competition, our facility tours, interactive exhibits, all of that type of stuff is there. The UWM School of Freshwater Sciences, that's our general website. You can find out a lot of great information about what the research is going on and a lot of current issues in the Great Lakes. And then the last is just a little clip of a virtual tour of the Harbor campus, which is where we're located. And it's a 360 virtual tour where you can kind of look around our dock and our research vessel, so you get a little exploration there. So feel free to reach out. We are working on a variety of things and willing to make things work for teachers. So if you have ideas of what we might be able to do to be helpful with you, just reach out. We're willing to talk about it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Liz, for sharing. I can second that the CGLL resources, or Spiegel, the Center for Great Lakes Literacy, are wonderful resources. And we actually have their website linked in the Eco-Literacy Challenge. So win-win. If you go to the Eco-Literacy Challenge, you can also get connected with that curriculum. And I have been lucky enough to participate in some of the field experiences with Liz and School of Freshwater Sciences, the UWM ambassadors, and bring kids down to the lake. And it is an awesome experience. We've had fourth graders on a day where it is pouring rain and the lake is very active, and wholeheartedly embrace it and go down to the lake and have a really memorable experience while learning about the importance of that water as well. So if and when we can get our kids out on the lake this school year, I really encourage you to do that and check out the rest of these resources. All right, we are on to our last organization to share. It's my pleasure to introduce Christina Toddy from the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewerage District, and she's going to share some really wonderful resources that they have available to connect your students throughout the Milwaukee area in connection with a lot of other educational and environmental organizations as well.
All right, thank you all. I'm really excited to be here, and thank you to everyone that's presented. It's been great resources. As Lisa mentioned, my name is Christina Toddy, and I am with the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, also known as MMSD. And we protect public health and the drinking water supply for millions. I'm sure many of you have heard of us before. I'm going to give you a very quick overview of who we are and what we do, and then go into about the educational resources that we can provide.
Is it going?
There we go. Okay, so what does MMSD do? So we do two main things. We do wastewater treatment, which we call water reclamation, and flood management. So we are one part of your Milwaukee water story. So when you flush the toilet, you take a shower, you do laundry, all of that dirty water comes to one of our two treatment plants where it is cleaned, and then we release it back out to Lake Michigan. Another agency, if you live in the Milwaukee area, called Milwaukee Water Works, pulls that water out of the lake and cleans it and then sends it to your home so you can drink and use it. So we solely do the wastewater treatment side of things. Another important focus that we have is flood management. And so this includes the management of our rivers and creeks in the area. And we want to reduce the risk of flooding in our neighborhoods. And so we do that with a few different tools, and those can include removing concrete from our rivers or making rivers wider so there's more room for water to go, such as what's happening in Pulaski Park, if you've checked that out, or what's about to happen in Jackson Park. Flood management also can include green infrastructure. So, and I think that's been mentioned a couple times on here, and it's basically managing the water where it falls. So we do a lot of education and implementation around large-scale green infrastructure, such as the green roof at the Milwaukee Public Museum, if you've seen that, or rain barrels and rain gardens. All right, so who do we serve? So MMSD, our map is on the right-hand side of your screen. This is our entire service area. There's 1.1 million customers from 28 different municipalities, and this is a 411 square mile area. So where does all this water go? So there's underground pipes, right, that come from your house or your business. Those are called your laterals. It takes that dirty water out to a pipe that is owned by your municipality. Total, all of the pipes that come from your house and those city pipes There's over 6,000 miles of pipes in this area. And those connect to our MMSD sewers, which we only have about 300 miles. So all of these pipes are gravity operated, and they bring them down to one of our 2 water reclamation facilities, which is Jones Island and South Shore. So there's a couple things I just want to point out to you quickly on the map. If you see the green area here, that is called our combined sewer area. So in that area, the rainwater as well as the dirty water from your house goes to the wastewater treatment plants to be cleaned and then released back out to Lake Michigan. In the white area, we have a separate sewer area. And that means that there's actually 2 different pipes, one that collects the rainwater and one that collects the dirty water from your homes and businesses. The dirty water from your homes and businesses goes directly to the wastewater treatment plants, and the rainwater pipes goes directly out to our rivers and lakes. The other thing I want to point out on this map is the purple. And I'm sure some of you have heard before, the purple is the deep tunnel. So the deep tunnel, if it goes to the next slide, there we go, is about 300 feet below ground. It stores 521 million gallons of water, and it's 28.5 miles long, and it's 17 to 32 feet in diameter, depending on what part of the pipe you're in. Actually, part of it goes below the Milwaukee River. It's big enough that you can take a car and drive down there. And this was put in 1994 to minimize basement backups and overflows. So on a regular basis, we don't use the deep tunnel. We only use it when we have a really heavy rain. And it's basically a holding tank when there's a higher capacity going to our wastewater treatment plants than we can handle. We hold the water in the deep tunnel until we're able to keep up with that wastewater treatment. So as I mentioned, we have 2 water reclamation facilities. We have Jones Island and South Shore. I'm sure you've seen Jones Island. If you've gone over the Hone Bridge, you can see the stack that comes up from there. And then South Shore is just a little bit south by Oak Creek. On a normal day, each plant can treat about 75 million gallons of water. And on a rainy day, combined, they can treat 600 million gallons per day. So MMSD has a 98.5% capture and clean rate. And what this means is this is the amount of water that we are able to take into our water reclamation facilities, clean, and release back out into Lake Michigan. On a national average, most places are, their goal is 85% of a capture and clean rate. So although we're not at 100%, we still want to continue and grow and get better, but we are doing fairly well. So now I'm going to go into MMSD's resources. So we realize that in order to continue to have our healthy waterways and healthy rivers and water, we need to protect our drinking water source. And in order to do that, we need to invest in the next generation. So MMSD has tours, we have an environmental education initiative, and some classroom resources. And I recognize that with COVID that not all of these opportunities are available right now, but I just want to make sure that you're aware of them so when we are back into normal classroom practices, you're able to take advantage of them. So to start out with our lab tours, so MMSD has a state lab. It is the biggest lab in the Milwaukee area. It runs 365 days per year. It samples over 120 samples, and there's over 25 employees that work in that lab. And if you're interested, you can bring your students for a lab tour. It's a 1-hour tour for high school and up, 10-person max, just because of the capacity of the rooms to hold individuals. In the morning and early afternoon, and it's free, and the tours take place at MMSD. The next kind of tours we have is freshwater monitoring. So we monitor the status of our waterways and MMSD's impact. So this boat that's shown here is the Pelagos. And it goes out 2 to 3 days per week to collect samples on the rivers and lakes, about 100 sampling different sampling locations. And we think it's important to get students especially out on our waterways. So we're able to take students out for a 2-hour tour. We limit it to students that have a high school minimum of 1 biology class. It's 15 people that can fit on the boat. And unfortunately, we can only go on Fridays because that's the one day of the week that the boat isn't being used for the mandatory monitoring. But if you're interested, we would love to have you. The last is our Jones Island Water Reclamation Facility, which I'm sure many of you have heard of or done the tour before. You get to see the different stages of the wastewater treatment process. Speak to experts. We can tailor these tours based on what you're looking for. If you want to do a career panel afterwards, or if you want to talk to different engineers about a specific project. You also get to go into the drying and dewatering building to see how Milorganite is made. So during normal practices, we can have 10 to 50 people, 5th grade and up. It's an 1.5 to 2 hours long. Again, we offer free tours, and there is busing reimbursement available. You just have to reach out to myself, and I'll give you all these links and information at the end. And you schedule the tours through Veolia. So MMSD is a regional government entity, and we contract a private company, Veolia, to actually manage and run the 2 wastewater treatment facilities. But the good news is we are working on a virtual tour, and I am sure you all probably signed up for that for tomorrow as well. So I hope to see you there. But it's about a 10-minute video where you actually get to see some of the behind the scenes action that's going on. And since we can't have people coming right now, we're still more than welcome to have you speak with different experts, do the live Q&A, so we can tailor that to what your classroom needs are. The next thing I'm going to talk about quickly is the Environmental Education Initiative. So again, this is trying to get students out by nature and water, experience it firsthand. So MMSD provides scholarships to local nature centers as well as a few other organizations for students to enjoy free programming and bus reimbursement. So of all of the organizations listed here, there's different programming K through 12th grade. You can go to our website and you can see specifically what each organization tailors their water curriculum towards. And right now, I know a lot of these organizations are in the process of providing a wide array of activities for students in the upcoming fall semester. So I know there's some that are going to offer still some in-person opportunities, some grab and go bags, some virtual bags. So I highly recommend that you look into this. Again, you can look on our website to find the partner that you think would be the best for you. And then you just reach out to the partner and let them know you're interested in the MMSD funded programming. And again, that's free for you. And we will also reimburse your busing for getting students to these activities. The next thing we do is classroom presentations and events. So we are happy to send an expert out to your class. We can talk about a wide variety of water-focused topics or careers. We can send out some of our wastewater monitors, some of our lab scientists, whoever you might be interested in. We can also do this virtually if you're interested in the upcoming year. So that was a quick overview of all of our resources. All of what I mentioned is available on this last bullet point, the classroom resources and presentations. This takes you to our water education page for MMSD, which has links to all of the different resources. I hope you'll all join us tomorrow for the virtual tour. And please feel free to reach out if you have other ideas of how you'd like to partner. We're always open to that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. And here is another plug for the virtual tour tomorrow at 10 a.m. When I send the follow-up email tonight, if you have not yet registered to participate in that tour, there will be a direct link there so you can join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. to experience that tour and see how it can support your learning this school year with your students, or just for your own information. It's a really interesting tour and gives a great peek into the careers and the processes that a lot of people don't think about when they, when they run the water in their sink or they flush their toilet. So thank you for providing all those different resources for people to look into this school year. All right, so you all have been wonderful. Thank you so much for sitting in and listening to the different resources that the organizations have shared today. We are at the point in time where we can take some questions. So I'm actually going to pass this over to Justin Hegarty to kind of moderate our Q&A session, because he's been collecting any of those questions that have come through. Before we dive into those questions, would it be possible to share one more audience poll? This is going to ask kind of where your interests lie in virtual programming for the next school year. Are you interested in kind of one-time experiences? Are you looking for something more? This is multiple choice, so please just select all of the options that you may pursue with any of your students or with your family.
That's about 60% of everyone, so I'm going to end the poll right there.
Awesome. Okay, so a lot of interest for on-demand and full units of exploration. So that's really helpful for all of us as we continue to adapt to the changes that are happening with education and for everyone's safety, to really kind of help determine where to put forth some of our efforts as we move forward this school year. So thank you. And then if any of these different opportunities are available, we'll be sure to share those through our different networking outlets like the GSAM newsletter and the Facebook site as well. And in the email follow-up, you'll receive a couple resources that are providing some of these same kinds of virtual activities that will be taking place in the fall that you might want to sign up for and take advantage of.
Cool, so questions. There were some really great questions in the Q&A, and some of them make sense just to kind of verbalize as well. So one of them is, can we provide a certificate of continuing education hours? I believe the answer to that is yes. And you can email Lisa Neeb, and I can just type her email address in here, and then Lisa can send an email early next week with a certificate of hours. So this email address.
And I think I've already received a request from someone, so thank you.
And then there is another good question about, can we provide some examples of scaffolding? Maybe that's an open question to the panelists. Is there anyone that wants to jump in there and provide an example?
Sure, I can take that one. Isabel at Upham Woods here. So when we're talking about scaffolding, we mean like introductory activity. So I'm thinking specifically of what Ariel was presenting on our Bringing It Back to Ranger Mac programming, where we just have a simple inquiry activity to get a kid outside and getting used to observing and doing that beginning of the scientific process and recording what they're noticing. And then the next level is to guide them into doing more focused data collection. At this point, you could think more of like the macroinvertebrate studies, right? Where we're providing a procedure and a specific outline that folks need to follow. And then the next evolution of that would be communicating your results in the storytelling format that Upham Woods prefers to use. I hope that answered the question. The idea is that the activities build off of each other as the student goes along.
I would add for our art making and looking at art opportunities for students that are younger to both communicate verbally and written, depending on the grade level, just starting where students are at and then building off of that is something that we also do. And even adapting tools or methodologies for art making so that everyone can achieve with whatever scaffolding they need at the same high level.
Another question that I think would be valuable is, how can other organizations or individuals share the resources that they have available through the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee? To Lisa.
That's an excellent question. So if you have activities and programs that you'd like to share widely, we can enter them onto the Eco-Literacy Challenge. So there is a quick, easy form that I can forward on that's also accessible on the web page, where you can fill out contact information, a brief description, and some of the connections that we would use for the filter to help facilitate educators finding it. So if you submit that into us, we can get it on the website fairly quickly and easily. There are other ways to get involved. Depending on level of engagement, you can email me directly. We can talk about some of those resources and potentially include in the newsletter, or we often share resources from other organizations on our social media. And just having a way that we can connect you with that greater community. We're very open to promoting all the great resources that are out there. Another thing, in different times when we can resume some of those bi-monthly meetings and have the Green Schools Conference in person, there's always opportunities to present and share resources there, whether it is an actual workshop that you're running or tabling and sharing during like an exhibit hall. There's all different levels. So short answer, connect with me, and then I can help you figure out the best way to move forward.
Another question relevant to what's in the Q&A right now too is, are there other resources available for schools outside of the Milwaukee area? And I'll just mention before we go to the Ranger MAC part of this, that the Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin program is statewide, and there's some really great resources through that program as well, and we can share the link in the chat. But there's a question in the Q&A about Ranger MAC, and if there are resources for central state schools as well. So maybe Isabel, that's a good question for you too.
Yeah, we can work with anyone on this. Just let us know if you're interested. I can drop my email in the chat box again too. But yes, it is not limited to central state schools. It's statewide.
And then I'll add, on the lines of Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin, in the email follow-up, you're going to receive a link for virtual classroom lessons that are going to be available this fall from a number of organizations that are aligned with Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin. So they're short 30-minute virtual experiences that are focused on different environmental and eco-literacy themes. There are a selection that you can choose from. They're all free to participate, and they'll all be recorded afterwards. So if you can't join live when the session is taking place, you can access it later for your own professional development or to help support your kids. So there are some opportunities in the fall, and that Green and Healthy Schools Wisconsin is based out of Stevens Point. And so they really do serve a greater area than the Green Schools Consortium of Milwaukee specifically does.
Another question that came through was, are the schoolyard redevelopment planning grants available to all types of schools? And I think that question means public, charter, and private schools. And I can answer that one is yes, the conceptual planning grants are available to all schools within the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District area. That grant opportunity will become available in September, October of this year, and we'll be sharing that through the Green Schools Consortium Milwaukee listserv as well. Okay, and then other questions are the kind of the open questions about which resources would each of the organizations recommend for someone looking to dive deeper on a particular topic. And Lisa, if you want to kind of direct that question to one of the organizations that maybe hasn't spoken quite yet.
Okay, well, Christina, you're first in my view. So what would be your recommendation for someone to start?
To dig deeper?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's a very broad question because it kind of depends on the age group that you're looking at and what you want to do. I do think from MMSD resources, we are a lot of like that entry first level. But then where I direct people is back to that Green Schools Consortium website, because I do think that helps to narrow down different activities. I also think it depends on how you want to dig deeper. If it's individual students, we're happy to do different mentoring or different talks. So that's something that we could provide.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then Liz, do you have anything you would like to add as a place to start and potentially to dive deeper?
Well, I guess mine would be more to dive deeper, or actually the Center for Great Lakes Literacy is a really great resource to start and dive deeper. And the Wisconsin Sea Grant Program and other Sea Grant programs around the region are good places as well to dive in deeper. And the School of Freshwater Sciences, if you have students who really want to dig into a specific topic, you know, we can share their questions with our researchers, and they're happy to answer them. So it's kind of, how deep do you really want to get into it?
Wonderful. Anyone else have something to add? We also have a number of Sea Grant resources on the Ecoliteracy Challenge.
Okay, well, that does it for the questions in the queue. If there's anyone that would like to pose a question, you can raise your hand in the participant panel, and we can call on you too if you're interested in localizing a question. Okay, here's one. Anne. So Anne, you might have to unmute yourself, but I think you're available to ask whatever question you have going on. And I think you may have to unmute your phone there.
Justin, can you unmute her?
I can click the button for it, but it's not quite going through it. There we go. Okay. I'm not quite hearing Anne. We'll have to, if there's any other one, we'll go from there. But I think that about does it. That's all of our hands raised as well.
That's wonderful. And we are so good at keeping to time. It is exactly 3:45. So wonderful job, all of the presenters. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today and learning about these different resources. We really hope that we've given you some things that you can easily utilize as the school year starts. These are a couple easy next steps. Really, the Ecoliteracy Challenge will connect you to all the providers and resources that have been mentioned here today, as well as additional ones that we've talked about. Stay connected with us either through the newsletter or the GSCM Facebook, and we'd really appreciate it if you take time to fill out the survey that's going to come in the follow-up email. And then as you move forward, please share these resources with others, because we are really trying to promote as much environmental education and connection to ecoliteracy and stewardship as possible through all the good work that all of these organizations are doing. So as a final thank you for all of your time and your participation, we really appreciate you. Thank you again to Upham Woods and UW Extension for providing the sponsorship for this webinar through the Science Strikes Back grant, as well as all of our presenters. And if you shall need anything at all, you can feel free to contact me or visit our website and look for an email from me shortly. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, everyone.